The city lights flickered outside the tinted windows of the black car as Taehyung loosened his tie, exhaling a sigh. The night had been long, too many pointless conversations, fake smiles, and empty glasses of whiskey that burned less than the frustration simmering under his skin. But nothing was as frustrating as the scene before him now. Jungkook, his sharp-tongued, prideful employee, the one who always challenged him in meetings with fiery eyes, the one who never bowed down to anyone, least of all to Taehyung, was sprawled against the bar counter, completely wasted. His usually pristine white dress shirt was half unbuttoned, clinging to his skin like a second layer, his dark hair a mess, his lips parted as he groaned, resting his forehead against his arm. The bartender had already stopped serving him, and the group he'd arrived with had long since left. Yet, Jungkook remained, lost in whatever misery had led him here. Taehyung ran a hand through his hair. "Such a mess," he muttered before stepping forward. "Get up," he ordered, voice cold and authoritative. Jungkook lifted his head sluggishly, his gaze unfocused. Then, as if realizing who was speaking to him, he let out a breathy laugh, low and slightly bitter. "Oh, look who it is, my terrifying boss." Taehyung narrowed his eyes. "You're drunk, no sh." Jungkook leaned back against the counter, his head tilting to the side. "But why do you care? Shouldn't you be somewhere looking all expensive and untouchable?" Taehyung clenched his jaw. "Get up. I'll take you home," Jungkook scoffed. "I don't need you to." His sentence was cut off when his body betrayed him, his balance slipping as he nearly crashed to the floor. Taehyung caught him instantly, his grip strong and unwavering. For a second, Jungkook just stared up at him, lips slightly parted, something unreadable flickering in his dark eyes. Then he laughed softly, something more broken beneath it. "Wow. Even when I'm pathetic, you're still." His words slurred, and he stopped talking altogether, slumping against Taehyung. Taehyung sighed and, without another word, lifted Jungkook into his arms. By the time they reached Taehyung's penthouse, Jungkook was half-conscious, murmuring unintelligible words against his chest. He should have taken him to his own place, but the thought of Jungkook being alone in this state didn't sit well with him. Kicking the door open, Taehyung carried Jungkook straight to the bedroom, laying him down carefully. Jungkook groaned, shifting, his brows furrowing. "Hot," he mumbled, fingers weakly tugging at his shirt. Taehyung rolled his eyes but knelt down, undoing the remaining buttons. He had seen Jungkook composed, seen him sharp-tongued and reckless, but never like this, never so vulnerable. As he slipped the shirt off Jungkook's shoulders, the younger shivered, a quiet sound leaving his lips. Taehyung's hands froze for a moment before he shook his head, scoffing at himself. Then, just as he was about to move away, Jungkook's hand suddenly gripped his wrist. Taehyung stiffened. Jungkook had never called him that. Not once. Not even when they weren't at each other's throats in the office. Jungkook's grip tightened, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't go." Taehyung swallowed, his heart hammering unexpectedly. Jungkook's gaze was lidded, drunk, but there was something raw behind it, something that made Taehyung's carefully built walls crack just slightly. He knew he should pull away. He knew Jungkook wouldn't remember this in the morning. But he didn't move. Not when Jungkook pulled him closer. Not when his breath coasted over his lips. And not when he whispered, "Stay." A dull ache throbbed in Jungkook's skull as he stirred awake, the soft sheets beneath him unfamiliar. His brows knitted together, a groggy haze clouding his senses. The first thing he noticed was the scent, expensive cologne, faint traces of whiskey, and something distinctly Taehyung. His body stiffened. His eyes snapped open. The ceiling above was not his. The bed he was lying in was not his. The smooth silk sheets? Definitely not his. What the hell? Jungkook turned his head slightly, and there, sitting on the edge of the bed, clad in a loose white shirt with his sleeves rolled up, was Kim Taehyung. His boss. His cold, untouchable boss. Jungkook's heart stuttered. Memories from last night slammed into him all at once. The alcohol, the self-pity, the warmth of strong arms carrying him, the faint whisper of his own voice saying, "Stay." His stomach dropped. He shot up, only to groan when the pounding in his head punished him for the movement. Taehyung glanced at him, face unreadable. "You're awake," Jungkook swallowed. His throat was dry. His entire body felt hot. What am I doing here? You got wasted at the bar," Taehyung replied coolly, standing up. "Your so-called friends left you behind, and you were in no state to go home. I brought you here." Jungkook's hands gripped the sheets. "You brought me to your place. You would have passed out in the gutter otherwise," Taehyung said nonchalantly. "Be grateful." Jungkook's cheeks burned. He lowered his gaze, only to realize he was shirtless. His breath hitched. His hands flew to his torso, feeling the body skin. "Where the hell is my—" He looked up, horrified. "Did you relax?" Taehyung cut him off, his voice laced with amusement, but there was something sharper beneath it. "You were sweating and mumbling about being hot. I only took off your shirt. Nothing happened. Nothing happened." Then why did Jungkook feel this unfamiliar tension coiling in his chest? His eyes flickered toward Taehyung, who had his arms crossed now, his expression calm but his gaze piercing. "Do you remember anything?" Taehyung asked. Jungkook hesitated. He remembered flashes, his own voice calling Taehyung's name, the feeling of warmth surrounding him, fingers brushing against his skin. But most of all, he remembered the moment before everything went dark. "Stay." Jungkook's throat went dry. He didn't know what was worse, the fact that he had said it or the fact that Taehyung had stayed. He quickly averted his gaze, gripping the sheets even tighter. I don't remember much." Taehyung tilted his head slightly, his sharp gaze searching Jungkook's face. It was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something almost disappointed. "Good," Taehyung finally said, turning away. "It's better that way." Jungkook flinched at those words, but he didn't know why. As Taehyung moved toward the door, his voice rang through the room one last time. "Your clothes are on the chair. Clean up and leave when you're ready." And then he was gone. Jungkook sat frozen for a long moment, his pulse loud in his ears. He should feel relieved that nothing happened. So why did it feel like something had? Jungkook sat on the edge of the bed long after Taehyung left, staring blankly at the floor. His mind was a mess. His body was tense. And his heart, his damn heart, was racing for reasons he didn't want to acknowledge. Nothing happened. That's what Taehyung said. So why did it feel like something had? Jungkook exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. He needed to get out of here. Throwing off the sheets, he spotted his neatly folded shirt on the chair and hastily slipped it on. As he buttoned it up, his fingers hesitated at the collar. The scent of Taehyung's cologne lingered on his skin, faint but unmistakable. His pulse quickened. Shaking his head, Jungkook grabbed his phone from the bedside table and checked the time. 11:24 a.m. There were no missed calls, no texts. No one had even checked on him. Figures. He sighed before stepping out of the bedroom. The penthouse was as cold and pristine as its owner, minimalist furniture, monochrome decor, and an overwhelming silence that felt suffocating. Jungkook spotted Taehyung sitting on the couch, legs crossed, a cup of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked every bit as composed as he always did, as if last night was nothing more than an insignificant inconvenience. Jungkook swallowed, suddenly unsure of what to say. Taehyung noticed him immediately. Without looking up from his phone, he spoke. "There's coffee in the kitchen." Jungkook frowned. No sarcastic remarks. No cold indifference. Just coffee. "I'm leaving," he muttered, shifting awkwardly. Taehyung finally looked up. His gaze was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes for a brief second. "Suit yourself," Jungkook expected that answer. He had no reason to stay. But as he turned toward the door, something nagged at him. A part of him wanted to ask, "Why did you stay? Why didn't you leave me at the bar? Why do I feel like I said things I shouldn't have?" But he didn't ask. Instead, he clenched his jaw and walked away. Sound of the door clicking shut echoed through the penthouse. Taehyung leaned back against the couch, staring at the now empty space where Jungkook had stood. His fingers tightened around his coffee cup. Jungkook didn't remember everything. That was good. That was safer. And yet, Taehyung closed his eyes briefly, memories from the night before surfacing. "Tae, don't go." He had never heard Jungkook say his name like that. Soft. Vulnerable. Almost desperate. It was dangerous. Jungkook didn't know what he was saying in his drunken state. He didn't know how his fingers had curled into Taehyung's shirt, how his breath had gusted against Taehyung's skin, how his lips had parted as if. Taehyung exhaled sharply, pushing the thought away. It had taken everything in him to pull away last night. Jungkook wasn't supposed to look at him like that. Jungkook wasn't supposed to cling to him, murmur his name like a secret. And Taehyung wasn't supposed to want more. But he did. And that was the real problem.